Right.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the roll, please.
Mayor Bailey?
Here.
Mr. Bateman?
Here.
Mr. Blair?
Here.
Mr. Hart?
Here.
Mr. Ori?
Here.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Here.
Mr. Ping?
Here.
Welcome, everyone. With us tonight, we have our Director of Finance, Mark Medler, Assistant City Manager, Corey Wright, Clerk of Council, Misty Clark, City Manager, Dave Kennedy, City Solicitor, Joe Braun, our Chief of Police, Michael Gabrielson, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention at this time that if anyone didn't know, that our K9 Mac passed away last week, correct? Unexpectedly. He had cancer, so certainly keep our LPD family and especially Officer Beeblehausen in our prayers and thoughts. And also with us are former council members Pat Mays and Todd Osborne. So welcome everyone. And our longest title ever, but what is it? Director of Communications, Marketing and... Okay, I'll have to remember that.
Yes.
To write that down. Krista Rose. All right, so welcome everyone. All right, so first we have a presentation.
Yep.
Mr. Wright, would you like
Sure.
Mr. Kressler at the podium?
Let me switch the camera. So tonight we are honoring Mr. Kressler. Mr. Kressler has accrued, he reminded me before the meeting that he's been active in the city of Loveland since before I was born, and has served the Planning and Zoning Commission for around 20 years successfully and honorably. Mr. Kressler, we can't thank you enough for what you do or what you have done and what you continue to do during your time living and serving the city of Loveland. I have been in planning and zoning now for since 2002. I've known a lot of board members, a lot of planning and zoning commissioners, a lot of planning commissioners. And as I told you at the last meeting, you are by far and away one of my favorites to talk to and to have worked with. So with that, thank you for your service. I have a small token of appreciation. The mayor has something else for you, but this is your nameplate. And
I don't know what the record is for someone holding a position on a commission or a committee, but decades seems like you might have it. But I know I've enjoyed spending my time talking with Mr. Kressler. Anytime we are able to engage in a conversation, his passion for this city is inspirational to me. I appreciate that very much, and the knowledge that you have, I've learned from you. So we're going to miss you on our commission, and we thank you very much for everything that you have done for this city and for the city council and for this, certainly for planning and zoning. Your service has been exceptional, and we will miss you. And we have this.
thank you.
As a token.
I told Corey I wasn't going to say anything, so I'll just say that if I haven't already said it in all the meetings, it's too late.
What?
Your photo? You gotta do your photo.
We're going to take a picture?
Mr. Kressler, we need a picture with. The history dating back to 1876.
Oh my. You doing that?
Yeah.
I had COVID when I came out of college. I've been so slow to recover. I'm fine now. But I'm dead. For a good 7 days. Unable to do anything. But now I'm back. I just got back in Monday. I'm starting to work again. It was great. It was real. Yeah, that's all people. I had never been. Me? I've never been. Yeah, so that was a first. I was. I would like to go back,
We don't
which I didn't think I would. Yeah, it was just 7 days, but I'll tell you, I definitely would.
Oh yeah, we saw him. Good. Ran around.
All right. We don't have anyone signed up for open forum. Mr. Kennedy, there's a communication you are anxious to discuss.
I'm only discussing it because Misty put it in, but Misty, part of her job is she goes through various communications and tries to put things in there that she feels are worthy. And for some reason, 11 cents a month decrease in your Duke energy bill is something we felt we wanted to know. But as Kent said, or the mayor said, at least it isn't an increase, but it's just a letter from Duke Energy letting us know that they are filing an application with the PUCO, which is Public Utilities Commission of Ohio. So
Well, and it's a decrease.
a decrease of 11 cents.
Something.
Thinking the letter costs more than that, but so
11 cents per month.
yeah, per month, 11 cents.
All right. Next is review and approval of minutes from the November 22nd, 2022 meeting. Additions, changes? All right. I will be abstaining because I was not present. Want to call the roll, please?
Well, somebody has to motion.
Oh, yeah.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to
Good
accept
idea.
the
I haven't been
minutes
here.
from November 22nd.
Second.
Thanks. Now call the roll, please. I got it.
Mr. Bateman,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Try to get
Mr.
my seat.
Ori,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps,
Yes.
Mr. Ping,
Yes.
Mayor Bailey.
Abstain.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right. Next, we have a second reading of an ordinance. Why don't you go ahead and read the ordinance?
Ordinance to make revisions to appropriations for expenditures for the City of Loveland, State of Ohio, during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2022.
Thank you. Is there any further comment beyond the discussion at the last meeting? All right. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mr. Ori,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps,
Yes.
Mr. Ping,
Yes.
Mayor Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Bateman.
Yes.
Ordinance 123 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Read the next ordinance, please.
Ordinance to make appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures, City of Loveland, State of Ohio, during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2023.
Thank you. Any comment? All right. I was not here to comment last time, but I just want to thank Dave Kennedy, Mark Medler, and all the staff for your hard work in putting together this budget.
Thanks.
I think it's a lot of exciting things that we're going to see happening next year. All right, call the roll, please. I'm sorry, read the ordinance. You did read the ordinance. Call the roll. I'm having a hard time.
It's okay. I'll help you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mr. Ori,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps,
Yes.
Mr. Ping,
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman,
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Ordinance 124 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
All right, read the next ordinance, please.
Ordinance modifying the Job Creation Incentive Program for the City of Loveland.
Any comment on this ordinance? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Ori,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps,
Yes.
Mr. Ping,
Yes.
Mayor Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Bateman,
Yes.
Blair,
Yes.
Mr. Hart.
Yes.
Ordinance 125 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Chief?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. We have presented you with a resolution. It has to do with our digital video recording system. Digital video recorders are a very reliable tool for the law enforcement, for the police department. Several years ago, I believe it was 2017, Council approved the installation of, it's from the vendor is called WatchGuard, of in-car cameras into all of our patrol vehicles, marked patrol vehicles. The next step in that technology has been body cameras. In 2022, we received a OCJS grant for 19 body cameras. Because of few vendor delays, that process has been in place throughout 2022, and hopefully we will have those in place, if not by the end of the month, first part in January. We're scheduled to have training with the vendor in the end of this month, so we have to have those up and running. At the time the grant was applied for, 19 body cams was enough to cover our staffing. But because of support from council and city staff here, we have increased our patrol officer staffing just a little bit, including myself. So we don't currently have enough body cameras to actually outfit for every single officer, including me. It's obviously difficult for myself to enforce a policy if I'm not going to be subject to the policy. So I feel it's important that we have it from top to bottom. In addition to that, with the body cams, now we have two separate systems. We have body cameras that are being operated by the vendors actually called Axon, and then an in-car system that's being operated by a separate vendor, WatchGuard. Because they're on two separate systems, that creates a little bit of additional expense for us. We have to maintain two separate digital video libraries, and because the two systems don't talk to each other, they don't allow for some of the advanced features that if they were all on one system that we would have. So I'm going to kind of take this in two steps here. We had originally applied for a grant to integrate the in-car system over to the Axon. We found out just within the last month here that we were not awarded that grant. So unfortunately, we lost the funding in order to do that. However, despite not having the funds available for it through the grant, the need is still there for us to integrate the technology. So with the two systems currently, as I said, with the increase of staffing, we are about 6 cameras short. 6 cameras would allow us to have 1 to 2 additional cameras available in case, the inevitable technology breakdown, something goes bad, something gets broken or lost. We can immediately deploy one out into the field so we have spares available for the officers. That need for those 6 additional, the cost for that would, when all the associated items in Exhibit A of the packet attached with this resolution, the total cost for that for the 6 is $24,493. Axon does offer 0% financing. The annual impact to the city would be $4,898.59. That would be financed over the remaining 53 months that are left on the 19 that we have. So it would all be wrapped up into the same purchase from the original 19. Second part of that is the in-car system. Integration from WatchGuard to the Axon system, if we're able to accomplish that in 2023, would require 11 in-car systems. We have 11 marked vehicles that are routinely out in patrol. That's obviously, we don't have 11 people on the road all the time, but with SROs and then cars being shut down for service, that's how many vehicles we need to maintain in order to make sure that every time an officer comes, they have a marked vehicle available for them. The advanced features that we are unable to use or would be unable to use would be the single point of activation. So currently with 2 systems, an officer would have to carry 2 separate pieces of equipment to activate, which under stress, that's adding just a little bit more to them. Then I think that's a little bit much to ask. There's also proximity. There's a technology that would allow for proximity where if one of these systems is on, that the other, when another officer showed up, it would actually activate theirs without them even having to turn it on. The same vendor would also allow for synchronizing the two. So when you played them, it synchronizes all the video and the audio across the system. So you can play them side by side. There's synchronization, so it's not going to be off. You're seeing the same thing with the same audio and video. And then, as I said, going down to a single point of evidence storage for this, we won't have to maintain 2 storage. It'll just be a single point of access for digital storage of all the videos that we are going to have. In Exhibit B of the packet, the total cost for 11 in-car systems is $137,280.22. The same 0% financing is available from Axon. Annually, the impact of the city would be $27,456.06. Combined with these 2 projects, total fiscal impact would be $161,773.22. So we could obtain all the requested items, and that would not exceed $32,354.70 during any fiscal year for the next 5 years. We've also been notified by Axon that any invoice that's signed after January 1st will receive a 10% price increase. So we're looking at more than a $16,000 savings if we wait till after January 1st to move forward with this purchase. Currently, lead time on body cameras is about 4 to 6 weeks, so we would hope to have those in place if the legislation is approved sometime in first quarter of 2023. They're confident they can get those delivered to us. Lead time on the in-car system's a little bit different. Currently, it's 10 to 12 months, so we can get in line, sooner the better. Hopefully, they would be in place by the year end of 2023. But despite of when we actually take possession of those, if the legislation is approved, we're locking in the pricing that we have now. So, in addition to, I would expect that at some point in 2023, there's more than a 10% increase on these. So council has a number of options. They can choose not to adopt, and we would remain status quo. We would keep our in-car system and the current number of body cameras, which there is some deficiencies in the DVR system with that. We could modify the number of body cameras or in-car systems that we have. The financial impact would be dependent on how we modified the legislation for that. And the third option, which is recommended by staff, would be to approve the legislation as requested. That would maximize our effectiveness of the digital video recording system, and we avoid any known price increases. And any questions that council may have?
Any questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Ori.
So the 19 cameras that we have now, those
Yes.
are the watch guard or whatever.
The 19 body cams are Axon.
Or Axel.
They are Axon, yes.
Okay. I was thinking they were the watch.
WatchGuard is the
WatchGuard.
in-car. We currently have 10 cars that are outfitted. Those are the systems that don't talk to each other.
And that's the one that we paid $160,000 minus 80 something for.
Correct.
So $75,000 out of pocket for the city.
The Axon body cams, yes, we did get a grant for that. That was there was about a 50% matching grant with
Right,
that in
right.
last year,
Yeah.
2022, I should say, early 2022.
So we'd have to get rid of some of the WatchGuard cameras.
WatchGuard was put in place in 2017.
Okay.
So they've been in service for 5 years. The
Okay,
average
gotcha.
life expectancy of those is somewhere in 5 to 7 years. Actually, WatchGuard starts to, much like technology, they start to phase them out. They will no longer warranty them after, I think it's 7 years. The standard warranty runs out at 5 years. I think the maximum they'll do is 7 years. So within the next 2 years, we were going to be replacing them regardless.
I looked into the Axon, a little bit of their history and the company. And the first thing I noticed is that they have offices or locations in like 7 countries. So it's a big company. I forget what year they started, but they've been around for a while. So
Definitely the leader in for law enforcement
Yeah.
technology of this kind.
seemed like it.
I just want to add the WatchGuard MVRs, as we call them, were covered by, we received OCJS grants, back-to-back grants. So we were able to fund all of those WatchGuards back in 16, 17, 17, 18. I forget the exact years, with grants from OCJS. But those are not the hot item when we just recently applied. Body cameras are the hot item. So, well, what do they call items of focus or something? Funding of areas of focus.
Vice Mayor.
From time to time in my day job, I have to look at police videos from both in-car and body cams. And if there's 2 different systems, oftentimes there's a different time signature for the systems. And so you can't necessarily know which sequence of things. I assume there'll be coordination of the time to signature, not only for the officer that's in the car and has a body cam that's activated, both are activated, but if somebody comes on scene, it's the same time signature, I would assume.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the body cam actually syncs, each individual officer syncs it with the vehicle. So those two are mirrored. So when one is activated, it activates the other. And then the system itself is all, the time is all obtained from the Axon system.
Any other questions? Mr. Hart?
A couple of things. One, you kind of touched on this a little bit, but the longevity of the Axon system, are we thinking in the 5 to 7 year range? We would hope those would work.
That's the life expectancy. The technology advances. They make enough changes that eventually the vendor stops supporting it through warranty. So then, once things go out of warranty, if anything happens, you're looking, it becomes cost prohibitive once they
Sure.
go out of warranty.
Makes sense. And the warranty, would that cover any typical wear and tear?
Yes, the
I understand that typical wear and tear for a police officer is quite a bit more wear
is-
and tear than
that is true. Yes, it is a challenge is often accepted by law enforcement when they say something is unbreakable. But in this case, the warranties are very good. It does cover the majority. Not only is it just the equipment, but it's also the software. So software updates that are done. So it's a complete across the board and covers the evidence library as well. So that the warranty covers each component, everything, all the accessories, everything. Yes, sir.
perfect. And the last thing I was going to ask about was this. You may not actually have the answer to this question. That's okay. If these aren't available to us for a year after are we start paying in January for these?
No.
Do we pay upon arrival?
Correct.
Okay, so we may not actually see payment on these out until December of 23.
10 to 12 months is what they're telling us right now. I hope that we would see them in 2023, but that is a possibility we may not.
Gotcha. All right,
In the meantime, we do have the watch guard system that we can use.
great. Thanks, Chief. I appreciate it.
Mr. Bateman?
I was just going to ask if moving forward with the integration to a single system, both the body cams and the vehicle cams, do you foresee that enabling any cost savings down the line? So 5-6 years down the road, is it going to be easier than trying to move forward with two separate systems? I mean, in terms of upgrading, or will we have to go through this again at some point when, like you're referring, this equipment, this technology sort of enters its planned obsolescence?
Yeah, at some point, having a guess of what we're going to look at in 5 to 7 years down the road, technology with what it changes, we would do our due diligence to see what is the best vendor for Loveland at that time. They do traditionally, once we get a good vendor, they maintain that relationship with us. We don't normally change a lot of vendors when it comes to things like this unless there becomes a problem. So as of right now, Axon is, worldwide. They are one of the leaders. I don't foresee us having to change. At this point, the advantages that we see from that, I can't say it's necessarily cost savings, other than we don't have to maintain two separate evidence libraries, so there's going to be some cost savings there.
Okay.
Because it is all one system. So there would be some cost savings over the time if we had to maintain a separate system. It's just the advantage of it because it is the same company. The technology that they have and any technology that they will develop would be across the platform.
And potentially with maintenance or things like that, in terms of troubleshooting a system, understanding it's a single system might make it.
Correct, yes. Yeah, how the recording, the platform, how it gets transferred, how we transfer it to the prosecutor's office and things like that is all going to be based on one system.
Any other questions or comments? All right, go ahead and read the resolution, please.
Resolution authorizing the purchase of Axon body-worn cameras units and Axon mobile video recorder units for use by the Loveland Police Department, and further authorizing the city manager to execute a purchase agreement in furtherance of the same.
Any comment on the resolution? Call the roll, please.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Resolution 126 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Chief?
As council may know, that we maintain a property room. We receive property into that property room in a variety of ways. There's obviously evidence that the officers come in contact with. We have found property. There is property we receive from just for safekeeping that's turned over to us. At various times, we will purge that property room. We don't like to hang on to things forever. So there are a number of items within that. We return things back to owners if we can, but there's property that we get that we just can't dispose of, return to an owner. So we have to find something to do with that property. A number of those items through court order and through Ohio Revised Code, if they have value, we can actually take possession. The city can take possession of that property and use that property for municipal use. At the end of that municipal use life, we would then dispose of that as a city asset through an auction. Some things are just destroyed. One of the things that Loveland Police Department also takes into. So that would be for, we get bicycles, we get, a found wallet, we get whatever it is. All that stuff comes into. Be surprised at some of the things that we get into our property room. So over the years, we take possession of a number of firearms through much of the same process. And sometimes those firearms are turned over to city use. There is a city use that we can use for them. But again, just like any other item, at some point they live their life as far as Loveland is concerned, and they no longer have a municipal use that we can use them. The same ORC that allows for disposition of the property, other property that we talked about, allows for us to dispose of firearms in a variety of ways. We could sell them, we can auction them. One of the ways that this legislation specifically discusses is they actually, a vendor will take them in trade and then provide us credit for a new property. So what we currently have 8 firearms in LPD that we obtained in various ways. They have been disposed of into our use through court order. They have now used, or they no longer have municipal use at this point, so we've used them for the life or the expectancy, but they still have some value to them. So we have a good relationship with the local law enforcement supplier, Vance's Law Enforcement. They have evaluated these firearms, and they have provided us with a credit for these firearms that's available to us if the legislation is approved for the purchase of new property. In Exhibit A of the packet, the value of those 8 firearms is $1,040, and there is a list specifically detailing each of the firearms. In Exhibit B, they have also provided us with a quote for the new property that we would like to purchase. They have 4 firearms at $360 each that we would like to purchase. Total purchase price would be $1,440. If the legislation is approved, LPD would trade those 8 firearms to Vance's for the new firearms, and the total fiscal impact to the city would be $390. Council again has a number of options. City Council can disapprove the requested legislation, and in essence, we would elect to destroy the items, which traditionally that's what we have done with our firearms. We have not sold them, we have not traded them in, even though they did have value. Is we would take them and cut them up, and we would lose out on that value. We could adjust the number of items to be traded or purchased. Again, the fiscal impact of that would be depending on what those changes were. And then the third option for council, which is recommended by staff, would be to approve the legislation as requested, allowing for the trade of the firearms as described toward the purchase of the new property. Any questions?
Questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Blair.
Chief, thank you for this. 2 questions. I understand that these new firearms are of a particularly concealable nature.
They are a smaller frame duty firearm. They're going to be used for our specialized positions, primarily our criminal investigators. So when you're wearing a suit, carrying a full frame firearm that we have on duty is a little bit cumbersome. This is a firearm that's approved by policy and by our firearms instructors. It's a same manufacturer that we currently carry in the full frame, so it's just a smaller version of what they carry.
Might they also be used if you're operating an investigation undercover or something like that?
They could be, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Mr. Ping?
I'm just curious, you mentioned that in the past the precedent has been set of destroying firearms. What's the reason for the change now, and what would be the reasoning behind taking something of value and destroying it in the past?
I think previously there may have been a stigma with a city, selling a firearm, but we have an option. The Ohio Revised Codes allows us. We could actually, just put them up to auction, and we could handle the transaction ourselves or go through a third party to sell it to whoever. In this case, what we're recommending is go to a very well-known and reputable law enforcement supplier, and we know, we are confident that they are going to, they're an FFL, certified FFL, that they will do their due diligence and follow the law and only provide these firearms to those that are legally supposed to have these firearms. So I think primarily that was probably it was just the stigma. And then there was a change in the law, and Mr. Braun can speak to that more clearly than I can, but there was a change in the law that allows this process a little bit more accessible under the Ohio Revised Code now that was not there previously.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? All right, thank you, Chief. Those are both good initiatives you brought us tonight.
Thank you.
Miss, you want to read the resolution?
Resolution authorizing the sale, disposal, or transfer of personal property by the City of Loveland and permitting it to be used for a credit to purchase other personal property.
Any comment on the resolution? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Resolution 127 was adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Mr. Wright?
Thank you, Mayor. This evening, I have a memorandum from Ms. Klopfenstein, our city engineer, regarding the East Loveland Avenue Improvement Project. And what we have before us is cooperative and intergovernmental agreement. So, as you know, the city had an opportunity. We've prioritized East Loveland Avenue because of the pending or imminent bridge replacement Claremont County is planning there. But with that, we applied several times. First 2 times we did not receive funding. However, third time's a charm, and really that's a credit to Cindy and the work that she does in really understanding the scoring process and all of that. And one of the reasons why we were successful was because we discovered that there were some existing conditions in the sanitary system there that are in that same roadway project, and we approached Cindy approached MSD. And instead of them taking 4 to 5 years to go their traditional route to design it, examine it, prioritize it, they decided to advance the funding. And so with that, the project did score successfully because they are going to be replacing about 1,300 linear feet of sewer line as part of this and in conjunction with this OPWC funding on that. It was because of that additional funding partnership that helped bump our application to the top, and we were able to secure that. So why do we need a cooperative agreement? Well, number one, OPWC require an inordinate amount of paperwork, including cooperative agreements, intergovernmental agreements, project agreements. So this legislation in front of council this evening will basically give us authorization to proceed, give the city manager authorization to proceed and execute those agreements as needed in furtherance of the project. OPWC does provide a template form document. MSD is a very sophisticated agency, so the document you have before you is their general form. That agreement may look slightly different, but the important thing is the financial amounts that are being committed to and cemented between the parties there. So why is this important to do all this at the same time? Well, number one, we don't want to tear up a brand new road with a sewer line project 4 or 5 years from now. So that's a big deal. We want to coordinate and minimize disruption to the extent that we can. And we want to do that in an efficient manner. If you look at, people ask about cost, the city and MSD have discussed the arrangements for cost. It would either be handled, it could be handled through an upfront payment or as invoices come in. But, the purpose of the cooperative agreement is to, make as concrete as possible MSD's funding commitment to that. And that's really what OPWC is looking for. So, in terms of fiscal impact, there's no real fiscal impact as part of this other than if we don't jump through the hoops that OPWC requires, we lose the funding. So that's basically where we are. This is sort of the next step in the process. And this would allow us to just get through the agreement phases as they come in. You have to negotiate those between the two parties, and this would authorize all of that. So there will be some separate legislation involving some easements and things like that. That'll come later. Mr. Braun is working on that with Cindy as we speak. But, at the end of the day, the recommendation here is to adopt the proposed legislation, which would authorize the execution of cooperative agreements and other intergovernmental agreements in furtherance of the project to secure this funding and cement the partnership between Metropolitan Sewer District and the City of Loveland, And also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Claremont County because, they're integral to this as well. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any comments or questions, Mr. Bateman?
I just want to mention, as I have in the past, I will be abstaining due to my residence being on East Loveland.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Vice
Just
Mayor.
maybe you mentioned the amounts, but this is a close to $1 million project, is it not?
It's a big deal. So if you look at the legislation there, you've got the amount of the funding commitment will be in that. You'll have some about six. I think it's a little over 600,000 plus or minus, just an MSD's commitment on the last legislation that I saw. There actually is an exhibit in the 686,000, and then the city also has 280,000 in funding. So you're talking just between the city and MSD, $900,000, and then that doesn't include the prior year's funding commitment for the bridge, which I don't have that number in front of me, but it's a big number. So it's probably almost a $2 million project when it's all said and done.
I would just add to what Corey said. It's rare that a city has a bridge in it that's still being maintained by a county. As you know, those have long since been passed off, and the fact otherwise this would be our expense. And Chief Huber, it's also what Corey was getting at. It's also another part of this is the coordination, because I know the fire chief will be parking a vehicle across this. I mean, it's going to be a big deal to make a mess once versus to make a mess. When they did the bridge, we did our stuff, and MSD did those people, those Andy Batemans of the worlds would just be those residents in that area. So that's another key element that this was all being able to put together at once. So,
All right. Any other comments, questions? All right. Read the resolution, please.
Resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a cooperative agreement, intergovernmental agreement, or any other documentation in furtherance of the East Loveland Avenue improvement project being advanced by and between Claremont County, the Metropolitan Sewer District, and the City of Loveland as required by the Ohio Public Works Commission.
All right. Any comment on the legislation? Call the roll, please.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Abstain.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Resolution 128 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Mr. Medler.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Every year, the city receives a little over $1 million in property tax revenues from the 3 counties. These typically happen in 2 sections, one in spring, March, and April, and another one happens in August. So we have a lot of kind of expenses up front in the calendar year. We have some debt service due, some other things. So what the city has done for the past number of years is request advances from the counties for that fund. So we will get an advance from each county, and then when the traditional payments would usually happen, we get a true-up amount from them. So this is just authorizing me to request those advances from each of the 3 counties.
All right. Any questions? Mr. Ori?
We've done this once or twice every year.
Yes.
Is there any way for us to just approve that he has this authorization to ask this without coming to council?
No.
Every year,
Our attorney is shaking his head no.
Okay.
every year they want to see this resolution.
Okay.
Right.
Because we do the same thing
Every year.
Comments or questions? Read the resolution, please.
Resolution requesting county auditors to make advance payment of taxes.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart? Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Resolution 129 is approved by a vote of 7-0.
Mr. Kennedy?
The memo before you accompanies legislation which will allow us to order play sets for the Cherokee and Navajo tot lots. I think this is an interesting project because it sort of emphasizes 2 points that the city's been working on, both commitment to our park system and, of course, a commitment to the Loveland Heights. Since 2016, we have been actively replacing play sets in our park system that were aged and non-ADA compliant. We've done Nisbet, Kiwanis, McCoy, and Phillips. That left the 2 tot lots and Lever, which is the newest and is not scheduled till 2025. So the city went ahead and, in an effort to get these two replaced up in the Heights, we submitted for a grant through the Ohio capital budget and was awarded $75,000 towards this project. I think the project also emphasizes the city's commitment to the Heights. If you recall, the city sold 2 city-owned properties on Highland and worked in agreement with the developer of the to widen that roadway through an assessment agreement. The CIC and City Council took the proceeds of the sale and, rather than simply throw it into the general fund, threw it into the Loveland Heights Housing Rehabilitation Grant Program, which is, as we speak, actively doing projects. We're moving on to phase 8 soon. With that, the city also secured monies for water valves through the CDBG program because the Heights is classified as an LMI area. LMI census tract, which stands for low moderate income, which makes them eligible for CDBG fundings. Then the tot lots, and we also are working with Cincinnati Bell to add Wi-Fi at each of the tot lots. Worked with Nest and Mike Broadwater from the school district to create these little educational zones and really try to create community centers. So pretty excited about what this project is saying to the community. And again, between our parks and the Heights, total project cost is right on budget, $134,849. If you subtract the $75,000 grant agreement, the city's share is $59,849. We budgeted $63,250. We learned in 2022 valuable lessons. That's why we're doing these things in December. That's why Chief Gabrielson did what he did. Well, we'll be back in January. The gazebo and the Phillips Park were ordered very early in 2022, and neither of them have been installed yet. So part of this is just to get the process going. So another item is what has sort of faded away a little bit is the Ohio management with the purchase agreement, the alliance at the state, and it's broadened to other national programs. One of them is called Sourcewell, and you'll actually see this on the next item. Sourcewell honors contracts throughout the state for myriad of items, obviously play sets and a mini excavator. That allows the city significant discounts. Where the state budgeting, their state purchasing program, use the budgeting or use the purchasing power of the state of Ohio. These national alliances, such as Sourcewell, are using the purchasing power of cities all over the country. So with that, we don't have to bid. We get a significant discount, and that's why I try to show the quotes. Both of the designs are pretty, are customized to that. One of the Cherokee, the proposals include the equipment, the demo, the engineered wood fiber, the belt borders, everything all in. They're fairly similar. The Cherokee lot is a little bit smaller in the footprint, and then the Navajo lot. We wanted to try to make them unique. We went with some unique, sort of different colors in Navajo. This is what they call the 5 to 12 age group, which is the biggest age group that we have. So these are going to be very welcome in that area. And if we order them now, we should see them hopefully be late spring, early summer.
All right. Any comments or questions? Yes, Mr. Bateman.
Just a quick question. I know the supply chain and everything is not something super predictable. Is the intent to have these installed at the same time, so there would be a period where there would be no lots for the tots?
Yeah, they'll both come in at the same time. They'll both be removed. These guys, it's pretty amazing how quick they can remove one.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be pretty quick. Oh, we're doing a site visit with Cincinnati Bell, I believe, Thursday, to talk about the Wi-Fi. There'll be a very small monthly fee. I plan on taking that monthly fee from the CIC budget because that's sort of one of their commitments. So that will be relatively soon, the Wi-Fi.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Yes, Mr. Hart.
Mr. Kane, does this include the mulching and
Yeah.
the area of the base
They call it
material?
EWF, engineered wood fiber, is what they call it. And that's all included, and the border. Scott usually collects the old stuff. He stockpiles that and use it. He'll put it on trails like at the West Loveland Nature Preserve and other areas. So he's a bit of a pack rat, but in a good way. So we'll reuse some of the existing fiber, but these are pretty unique designs. I really like the color on the Navajo. It's definitely different. And with that, but again, I put in my policy options. If we can go ahead and order them, that's not going to slow it down. The colors, if you want the Parks and Rec board to look at the colors, that's certainly an option. But I think it's sort of unique. When we were looking at them, I wanted them to look different in colors and stand out. So we've already done signs up there. They have the new design signage. But if you want to change, if you're not happy with the colors, I would send that to the Parks and Rec board.
I think this is an incredible refresh to an area that continues to
Yeah.
rehabilitate and continues to come around. I think it's great timing for it. Thank you.
Mr. Blair.
As a member of the CIC, I want to pat myself on the back, but mostly pat council on the back. The 7 bullet points, as laid out in Mr. Kennedy's presentation, to me are emblematic of what a city can do to help all the residents. And since I've been on council, it's been a great privilege of mine to get to participate with the CIC in this very important, valuable work that we've been doing to help revitalize the Heights. And I think you all should be very proud of the job that we've done over the last 5 years, just with this commitment to the Heights and all the accomplishments we've had over those 5 years. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Just a quick question for Mr. Kennedy. Does the vendor do the installation, or do we? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the vendor does all the entire work. And just to piggyback on what Councilmember Blair said in support of council and the CAC, 8 years ago when you got us down to 4 finalists for the city manager position, we all had to ride around with a current city staff member. I got the pleasure of riding around with the other smart Corey Schmidt. And I remember him saying something, and you guys should be proud of it. Corey Schmidt drove me into the Heights and said, and we stopped at the corner of whatever and whatever. And he goes, "This is an interesting part of Loveland that most of the other city managers probably aren't seeing. And it's right on the pivot. It can really go one way or the other, bad or good." And I really think, and I tried to put that in the memo, that you guys in the CIC have done a lot to redirect the future of that. And I just want to reemphasize what Mr. Blair is saying, because you are making a difference. And part of that was also you, a couple years ago, putting in stronger property maintenance code, thanks to the Law and Ordinance Committee. Everybody's had a part in this. And soon, Corey is working hard with Cindy to get the residential development on Highland going. That will be sort of the cap on the bottle or whatever. I'm not sure what the saying is when that gets done. And what you did to help work with him to widen the road, that was a big deal. So through an assessment, you're going to get. So I think the Heights is an important part of what you've done, and I don't think people know about it. And so I know I'm going on and on, but I'm not trying to win.
Or not be.
Misty.
Any other comments or questions? All right, read the resolution, please.
Resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Playground Equipment Services, LLC, for the purchase and installation of new play sets at the Navajo and Cherokee Tot Lots.
Any comment on the resolution? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Hart.
Yes.
Mr. Ori.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps.
Yes.
Mr. Ping.
Yes.
Mayor Bailey.
Yes.
Mr. Bateman.
Yes.
Resolution 130 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Mr. Kennedy.
So in 2020, that's how long ago it was when Public Works was working on the ditch line, which was just recently landscaped. You also put the steps in. If you recall, Public Works installed all of the storm piping, catch basins, the whole deal to make the project work. The city, Public Works Director Scott Wisby knew that given the not wanting to mess up the bike trail, and also given the fact that it was a little more snug, city rented a what we call a mini excavator. And since 2020, everyone in Public Works has been mentioning how valuable that tool would be to the city. We put it in the 21 and the 22 budget, pulled it both years. And meanwhile, the importance of it, the value of it to the city kept raising, kept being discussed. And we went ahead and put it along with a trailer into the 2023 budget. Thomas, he's the city mechanic. I think you might have met him. Thomas did a lot of research, and the consensus was that the Caterpillar brand was the best, the most nimble, that offered the most features. So there's a lot of advantages to it. It can get into water sites where backhoe can't. It is that its ability to get on hillsides and do things that the backhoe can't is probably first and foremost. When working off-road, it will do much less damage to the road, to the turf, to sidewalks, to any kind of material that it sits on because of the tracks. The loader arm is a 360 degree, and it might not sound like much, but that allows them much more ease in where they park the dump truck, the truck that's taking away all the spoils, and can actually clear up road because it is spinning 360 degrees, allows them to line things up with that. That obviously came from them. That didn't come from me. It helps out with detention basins, access into detention basins. And Scott made a point when Public Works was up in the Goshen area. This was the item of choice because the loader bucket basically has a thumb, which allows it. It was like the number one tool for loading up all the debris and branches. He's noticing it up in the Goshen. This thing has a little bit of like what are the machines that transformers. There's various attachments that can be added onto this. So looking over the attachments, we agreed that the flail mower, which is basically an arm mower that can be used for cutting back the brush and doing anything. Mostly if you've ever sped down Riverside Drive and saw our guys down there cutting back the brush, those days will be over. The excavator will actually remain on the trailer, get pulled by a vehicle with all the lights flashing, and the vehicle will cut back the growth. That safety right there, and obviously much better timing. And then also this will have a arm that'll come out, which will be a jackhammer. So whenever they're working in rock or blacktop or concrete, they'll be able to just use this device to use the jackhammer. It is quite the device. It will make Loveland U much more exciting next year. Because this will be the coolest toy they have, and it is really a valuable resource. And we've waited for 3 years and putting this in the budget when the timing was right. And one of the advantages of a purchase like this, I'm able to take it out of multiple funds, and no lease. We're just strictly doing this as a cash purchase. We are anticipating a price increase soon, but we would expect that the loader will be here in that's at about a spring sort of time. We're anticipating April, and the lead time in the trailer would be 30 weeks. So doing it as one legislation, but we'll be doing the POs tomorrow as two separate POs. That was all I had.
Any comments or questions?
Fair to call this piece of equipment a honeysuckle killer, at least on Riverside Drive?
Yeah, well, that brush is a big deal and the growth. We have a couple areas where they're out, and I've seen those guys on Riverside. That's not the safest situation. There's no yellow shirts bright enough for that. So I really think it's going to be a benefit to the city.
Yes. Mr. Burke.
Any training that our people would have to go through to operate?
they have to be, everybody has different controls. CAT controls are different than John Deere controls that are different. So yeah, they'll have to learn the CAT controls. But they felt yes. So the answer is yes. To learn CAT controls. So yes.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Read the resolution, please.
Resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Ohio Cat for the purchase of a mini hydraulic excavator and trailer.
Any comment on the legislation? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Hart.
Yes.
Mr. Ori.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps.
Yes.
Mr. Ping.
Yes.
Mayor Bailey.
Yes.
Mr. Bateman.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Resolution 131 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Mrs. Clark.
The next resolution is asking council to renew our janitorial services. Their base bid provided to us is the same as it was in 2001 and 2022 at $30,720, and we added a little bit more in there, $1,280 for extra special cleanings or emergencies or anything like that, and that's even a little bit less than we budgeted for last year with COVID, so a little $530 less than last year. They do clean all of our buildings, City Hall, the Safety Center, both sides, and Public Works. We did approach other services. We had Anago Cleaning come in with the bid that was a little bit less, but they wanted to clean in the evening, and that's not the direction the city wanted to go. We received another quote from Kelly Cleaning, which was $1,900 more a month, and another service didn't submit a quote after they had taken the tour. So we are requesting that we renew our contract with Precision Cleaning for $32,000 in 2023.
Any comments or questions? Read the resolution, please.
Resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Precision Cleaning Systems for janitorial services.
Comment on the resolution. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Ori.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps.
Yes.
Mr. Ping.
Yes.
Mayor Bailey.
Yes.
Mr. Bateman.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Mr. Hart.
Yes.
Resolution 132 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Mr. Kennedy.
Every 3 years, in conjunction with our collective bargaining agreement, we traditionally establish the pay rates for the non-union or non-collective bargaining, non-contractual employees. We set those in 3 years, and then council that benefits both the employee. They know how their salaries are going to be, and of course, it benefits those of us involved in the budget because we know what our salaries are going to be. On the year that we're renewing the CBA, which would be in 23, we would typically stall on the non-union salaries. And that's not always the best, especially if it lingers into May and June. And this year we decided that we would go ahead. We're in discussions with representatives from the lieutenants and the officers. And we've decided, based on those communications, based upon one of the strongest employee bases I think I've seen in my 8 years here, you're seeing many of them in sitting in front of you today, that we felt that it was in the best interest of everyone to go ahead and establish these now. 2 readings with January, they'll still be a little bit retroactive backwards, but these salary raises would be 5% in 23, and then would reduce to 4% in 24, and then 3% in 25. We typically wait and see what the PD does. With the cost of living, we just feel that this is very competitive, and I know that we're potentially losing a public works employee to another community. And once you get employees that we have that are very customer service based, that get it in another world, that keeping them and not losing them to another community is important. So not only are these fairly good raises, 23, and of course they go down to what our standard is in 25. I think it helps us create the wage ranges for each position that allows us to keep our employees here. So I will be bringing back a revised CBA once that gets wrapped up. I just don't believe that that's going to have any implication on this based upon current conversations.
Any comments or questions? Vice Mayor?
So in the past, the CBA often influenced or set the floor for raises.
Yes.
Is it now going to be reversed? That
You were, and I don't mean this with any disrespect, you're allowing the police officers to negotiate for the non-union employees is in essence what you were doing.
Yeah.
And no, I don't believe this is going to have an impact. What we're seeing across the board, and the Chief Gabrielson has quite a bit of impact. We're seeing wages in the police officers' wages. What we're seeing is some pretty big numbers coming in. We are working with them on a proposal that we hope will be actually allow us to not even go into formal negotiations. That's what we're hoping to do. We're doing this without Joe and without their representation. Will it dictate it? No, I don't think it will. What we're doing tonight, I don't believe it's going to impact our collective bargaining negotiations.
Any other comments or questions? All right, I'm glad we're taking care of this. I think everybody that is in the workforce or pays any attention to the news or anything that their friends or neighbors are saying understands what a difficult environment this is for employers and losing good employees. And we have some of the best here. And we certainly are our strongest and best asset and make this city what it is our employees. So I think 5% this year is certainly, given the cost of living, what's been going on with inflation, is more than fair and justified. This is a first reading only. Go ahead and read the resolution or the ordinance.
Ordinance establishing the schedule of municipal compensation of non-union employees and repealing Ordinance 2022-105.
Thank you. Mr. Wright?
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight I have a ordinance proposed for adoption via emergency with regard to the 501 Love Madera Road contract, and specifically a contract amendment. This would, as you know, City Council authorized the execution of a purchase agreement via the adoption of Ordinance 2022-77. Successfully, we're able to secure a contract, negotiate a purchase price with the property owner here. And 501, as a refresher, this provides the Chestnut Street property with direct signalized access in from Loveland Madera Road. And so that's why this parcel is important. So what we have tonight, part of what made that property acquisition possible was the Community and Economic Development Assistance Program funding award that the city received, an initial tranche, and then got an amendment for basically a total of $372,000 and change in grant funding, which would be applied toward the overall purchase price. Great news. As with federal agencies, a lot of hoops to jump through. City began working on the due diligence, prepared a phase one, actually had to do a phase two, several meetings and phone conversations with Hamilton County Planning and Development, who have been outstanding to work with. Couldn't be a better partner in that regard. But since there's a public notice period, and the memo goes into great detail about that, but basically there's a public notice period and a comment period by the funding agencies, and that's the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Well, they came back at the 11th hour, right as we were set to close, literally tomorrow, and they said, no, you're changing the property from commercial to public infrastructure, and they're going to require an additional environmental review, and which means Hamilton County has to redo the public comment period. And so in talking with Steve Johns at Hamilton County, they're advising an extension until March 31 to allow the county time to work through the additional environmental assessment and review process that HUD is basically mandated on this. So with that, the ordinance tonight, again, adopted via emergency, would allow us to execute a contract amendment through March 31. We are proposing as part of this to advance fund $5,000 in proceeds, which is non-refundable but applicable to the purchase price. And that's very common in something like this. You're basically, we're buying the extension because the property owner has foregone rent. They've kicked their old tenants out. They've had other bills, and this helps deal with that. So this is the cost of time, and the alternative here is if we don't do this and we close before we get the release of funds from HUD through Hamilton County, we could have to pay the money back. And that would be a significant financial impact to the city. So with that, I would respectfully request the adoption of the ordinance via emergency and would allow Mr. Kennedy to execute contract extension through March 31st for the property. And I would also add, and I'd be remiss, the property owner, absolutely fantastic to work with. Just a wonderful lady. So
Good negotiator.
Okay.
Jeez, let it go. Sorry.
Any comments or questions? Go ahead and read the ordinance, please.
Ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement extending the closing date related to the purchase of real property located at 501 Loveland Madeira Road and declaring an emergency.
Comment on the legislation? Call the roll, please.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Ordinance 133 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
There are various committee minutes and reports and comments on those. Last on the agenda is memo making committee appointments. The big committee appointments come the same year that we have municipal elections, but even in these off years, we have some appointments that the terms expire at the end of this year, and also we've had some vacancies, so these are taking care of those issues, those appointments. Anybody have any comments or questions on the memo? We have a motion to affirm the reappointments and appointments as listed on this memo.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right, as far as upcoming events, we have Christmas in Loveland this Saturday, December 17th. It looks like some events begin at noon, but really the majority looks like it begins at 4. Our offices will be closed December 26th for Christmas and January 2nd for New Year's. Christmas tree recycling begins January 3rd and runs through the 16th, so I assume tree out through the 3rd. Guaranteed pickup. Our next meeting will not be until January 10th, so Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all. We will not see you for a bit. Any other community events that may be coming up can be found on loveandlifeloveland.com. Does anybody have anything else, Mr. Blair?
I have a question, I'm sorry if it's slightly out of order. This question is primarily to Mr. Kennedy and Mr. Medler. We passed legislation tonight to authorize expenditures on the budget for 2023 after an extensive budgetary process, and we also decided to purchase an excavator this year. That it was mentioned during the discussion that it had been in the budget in 2021, it had been in the budget in 2022, and now it's in the budget for 2023. And it's not the only thing that sometimes we put stuff in the budget, and we would like to buy it, and we would like to spend the money on whatever it is we have in the budget, but sometimes we don't end up having the money in the budget. Is there a explain like I'm 5 explanation for why we would put something in the budget and carry it forward from one year to the next year, even if we have no plans to spend it unless something of a windfall falls our way?
Well, for in relation to the excavator, the Public Works was faced with the need for a new dump truck, and we wanted to try to space out our purchases so there wasn't a glut on one item. And as valuable as we knew the excavator would be, we felt that we could wait on that purchase item. The budget process begins in late June and goes throughout and is actually being modified right up to the point where it's presented to council for a reading. through that, a big part of that process is Corey and I, now that I have Corey helping me with the budget, and we meet with all of the department heads, and we sit and we talk to we talked to Chief Gabrielson. He initially brought 3 cruisers. We decided we would only go with 2 this year. We talked about the MVRs and what we would do if we didn't get the grant funding, and so on and so forth. And we do the same thing with every department. With Scott, we talk about the roads. We talk about this year, the emphasis was one of the things that we wanted to do was not use the road program as a way to do other paving projects. That actually, the message from that one came from the top, i.e. the mayor, which was we need to be able to say that when we're budgeting 1.2 million on roads, we're actually spending 1.2 on roads. So if you're going to do a parking lot, if you're going to do that, budget that separately. 2 of the big items in the 23 budget that were a big factor in how the budget played out in relation to revenue and versus expenditures is there's $1 million in there for the city's match towards the $3.3 million grant that we received for the Chestnut Street property. Goes without saying, and that the Chestnut Street property, once fully developed and the green light will be there finally after all of these years, will pay the city back that money many, many times over. The city was able to purchase 501, a key part of making Chestnut Street property such a viable light industrial office type project through largely grant funding. Here's how the conversation went with the Finance Commission. I'm not playing the rules, but hey, we want to make some significant improvements to the mobile station. Everything we do at the mobile station, including the purchase, everything Corey's doing with the tanks, the canopy, all of that are eligible expenditures for the recreation TIF, which is Chimney Ridge. That is estimated to bring in $3.2 million in revenue. Would you like me, this is me talking to the Finance Commission, would you like me to maybe get a short-term note to help pay for the expenses and let the recreation TIF funds? The answer from the Finance Commission was, we have excess reserve money, Dave. Why wouldn't you just let the general fund cover those expenses? We have a spreadsheet. We know what the recreation TIF is. That alone is a big chunk of what caused us to be where we're at in terms of revenues versus expenditures. And that was really some of the main cogs in what we did with the budgeting. Another item that isn't typically in our world is your residents spoke very clear to you that they would like to see your residents and your comprehensive plan and your council goals said you wanted to start connecting your neighborhoods. Well, the one that we are doing first is all the 3 subdivisions off of Loveland Miamiville Road. And those are projects that are, and I feel, an extra excellent use of your reserve funds to connect. Nothing's worse than doing plans and putting them on the shelf. Corey's making sure that the comprehensive plan and what you're going to do to Loveland Madeira Road is going to be exercised. And another one of your goals, which Corey's running with, is you guys want it to be the lead in that extra bridge. A bridge that will never be in Loveland, but will have an incredible ripple effect on Loveland. You guys want it to be the lead in that. God bless Corey. We met with every neighboring community, and guess what? None of them wanted to contribute towards this very important study that gets the process going. You're leading that. There's a big expense in outside contracted services to cover that. These are all items that are a direct result of what your residents are asking for. If you read the comments, the people say, you're not going to fix the traffic until you handle the bridge and figure out another way to funnel effect. So I think in a nutshell, that was sort of the mindset that's been going in since basically July until the budget. And with those expenses, we are going to exceed, our expenditures are going to exceed our revenues in 2023. So,
but okay, that partially answers the question, and I'm sorry to take up the time, but we had an excavator in 2021. We didn't buy it for whatever reason. We had the excavator in 2022. We didn't buy it for for whatever reason. Now we're going to buy it in 2023, unless some decision is made not to buy it. Now, because the excavator was in the budget in 2021 and 2022 and 2023, it all adds up to a bigger number because by the amount of the excavator. If we don't buy the excavator, then it just comes out of the budget again and gets moved forward. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. That's the question.
Okay.
Sometimes the city spends a boatload of dough. I realize that's a financial term. And sometimes we don't spend some of the money we have. But because we have items that we put in this year and don't spend it, next year we may spend it. And that's why we put it in next year. So looking at the budget doesn't mean we're going to spend every dollar that comes in. It's what we look to spend, given the vagaries of the economy, our grant results, yada, yada, yada. Another financial term. So just because you look at the budget and see that there are items adding up to, $12 million, doesn't mean we're necessarily going to spend that $12 million. What it does mean is that every item, every line, every revenue dollar that comes in has been looked at very carefully to see whether we can afford to do it. It doesn't mean we're going to. So the budget itself is an aspirational document and should be reviewed and looked at and thought about as an aspirational document. I hereby relinquish the balance of my time.
There is no balance. Did you have something you wanted to add, Mr. Med?
Yes, Mayor. Just to kind of go off that, and that Mr. Blair's point is made by the adjustment in the budget for the current year, 2022. You'll see there's some funds that have reductions. Those are because we had placeholder amounts for certain projects that may or may not happen. Since they didn't happen at the end of this year, those budgets were reduced to make sure we had a balanced budget.
And that was a significant number, all told.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Does anyone have anything to add to that enlightening discussion? All right. I think we need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Bateman?
Yes.
Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Quickly ask about our salt reserve.